Hi everybody, my name is Ivica. Thank you so much for joining me on the latest episode of I'm Gaming podcast. This is a podcast about the video game industry, entrepreneurship, gaming nostalgia, cool evolution of single-player video games, and many more things I find to be in the same realm of business and creative ventures. Now, like always, first and foremost, a big thanks goes to my Patreon supporters who really and truly make this podcast possible. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you all so much for continuing to help me expand, grow, and widen the episodes that I'm making related to all of the topics that I think are pretty cool, and a lot of you think the same way as well. Now this episode is 293, number 293 is all about a really cool phenomenon that I'm presently checking to see how is it evolving and changing and mutating, but it's most definitely rising up, and the same process is related to design and the creation of single player games that have a big narrative effect or a big narrative element to them, but which are atypical or atypical, unusual, different in some shape or form. Now, the games that I'm kind of thinking about presently are games that are out very soon, which is the continuation of the series Ghosts of Tsushima, which is the Ghost of Yotei, and another game that is under development but still very interesting is the game that is called The Blood of the Dawnwalker. It's an RPG game that is being developed by Rebel Wolves, which are developers formerly from CD Projekt Red who worked on the Witcher game, and of course Ghost of Yotei is the continuation of the older Ghost of Tsushima. What is interesting in both cases is that they present basically a single player experience, but one that is kind of enforced or fortified, better said, with experiences, elements, ideas that are usually seen in multiplayer games or games that are not single player titles with a heavy narrative element. But both games approach that process or those elements in completely different manner. Ghosts of Yotei basically uses something that is akin to an open world. So you have your enemies, which is the Yotei 6, the gang that kind of wronged the player character, killed her family, and the main character wants to have revenge on the same group of people. Now you can approach that revenge however you like. You can choose whoever you want to do as your first target, second target, third target, and so forth. And that provides you with a lot of opportunity and kind of emergent narrative that is happening as you get this process done of kind of conquesting or vanquishing your enemies. On the other hand, The Blood of the Dawnwalker is basically a tale of a vampire invasion during a kind of middle-age Transylvania region or part of Europe that is under a vampire invasion, which is presently already in kind of a grips of basically not just civil war but civil strife. And you play as a person who is infected by the vampiric virus and needs to do something in the coming 30 days. While you do that, completely different options appear based on your decisions. Do you want to find a cure? Do you want to save your family? Do you want to become a vampire who is powerful and thus get vengeance upon those who wronged you, or kind of try to take over in terms of a broader geopolitical picture? All of those elements and abilities and options are at your disposal, and you're using them kind of in parallel. Both cases have this idea that two people playing the same game, which is a single player game without any multiplayer functionalities, will have drastically different experiences and more or less kind of nudge the player towards thinking about playing again. Of course, Ghost of Yotei doesn't have that replayability in its first kind of moment where you get the pitch of the game, but on the other hand, The Blood of Dawnwalker is all about replayability and actually figure out what can you do more or differently when you play a next 30-day run basically. All of those kind of remind me of influences from multiplayer games, either open world multiplayer games or replayability elements of multiplayer games that are more score based, but they're all blended into the single player experience and the single player campaign that is at the same time very much narratively focused. It has a storyline, it has characters, it has events and sequences of events all of the elements that are basically the cornerstone, the essentials of the narrative development process for any game and the narrative experience that you have as a player. This is all great news for me because it shows that multiplayer games are influencing single player games in a way that allows the single player games to evolve and change and mutate, but does not hamper their ability to tell us a story, to present us with a story. Because there were a lot of opinions, maybe a decade ago, that single player games are a thing of the past. More or less like, point and click adventures. They will always be around, but their influence, impact, and kind of reverence in the player population will just continue to go down. But since more or less Black Myth Wukong, a game that once again showed that you can create single player experiences that are blockbuster hits, this opinion started to wane. And it's a good thing because gaming is not about anything winning over anything else. It's about the whole experience of different elements of the video game industry being able to kind of riff off each other and grow in parallel, grow along with each other, instead of kind of trying to suffocate, smother, or negate one another, which always fails even if you try it. So I'm really happy about these atypical single player games. I'm pretty certain that there will be more to come in the coming period, but it's also important to kind of know that now these single player experiences will once again influence multiplayer experiences, which will be able to expand, evolve, and become the provider as well, thanks to this single player influence. So it's kind of a win-win situation for everyone, especially us, the players. That's all for this episode. Hopefully you found it interesting, hopefully you found it cool and something to think about. I would love to hear your thoughts about all of this that I talked about. Please feel free to write those in the comment section below. But of course you can check out my other means of support, like my Patreon page, like my channel memberships, like my books on Amazon, including my best-selling book that can help you overcome procrastination. But of course the cheapest, easiest, fastest way to support me, just subscribe to my channel and be here for my new clips. That's all from me. My name is Ivica. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Have loads of fun in your upcoming week, and I'll talk to you in precisely 7 days from now. Until then, goodbye.